Hi, and welcome to the Average Gamer podcast. This is our end of year special, and joining me are show regulars Grant and Sully. In this, we're going to be deviating from our usual format a little bit, and we're going to be talking about our games of the year, hardware developments of 2016, cock-ups and cash-ins of 2016, and our hopes and fears for next year. So sit back, and we'll get on with it. Over to you, Grant.
Yeah, so this is my top 5 games of the year. I'm going to talk about what I've put in 5th place. Now, some of you might have already seen the video I put up on YouTube, but yeah, my 5th game of the year for 2016 is Rise of the Tomb Raider, which is kind of a late entry. I mean, it was released in November, and obviously we had to wait a year to get it because of the Xbox One exclusivity deal, because they got it a lot earlier. But what we did get was a really good package. It was a 20-year anniversary edition of the game, because obviously Tomb Raider first appeared in 1996 on the original PlayStation. And we got some additional levels, which I still haven't played, I admit. And we got, obviously, the original game and all the DLC. And the reason why it's in there is basically because I personally really like third-person adventure games, you know, like action-adventure games in the sort of mould of Uncharted, and obviously Tomb Raider, the new one, borrows a lot from Uncharted, which is funny because Uncharted itself was probably originally influenced by Tomb Raider. And Tomb Raider was the original kind of third-person adventure game, and the reason this one is in my top 5 of the year is because what it does with the sequel to the first game is it kind of iterates on what made that game so good, and it just does it a little bit better. The setting is really good. The sort of Siberian Peninsula where the game's set in is like is a good setting for a video game, I think. And the choice of like stealth, whether you clear enemies out of an area using either stealth or gun play, it feels mechanically very solid. Like when you're moving from cover, for instance, or Lara's climbing onto like the buildings, or she's trying to get into like a safe position, it feels really satisfying to move the characters around. The AI is quite clever. They'll try and flank you, they'll try and sort of smoke you out, but you've got a lot of tools at your disposal, and that's why I like it. I mean, the story isn't great. The problem I have with these games mostly is the acting. I think the acting in the cutscenes is just, well, it's bordering on the laughable, actually, some of it. But that doesn't bother me as much as it would, say, on an Uncharted game. I think it would bother me more.
It's no Uncharted, yeah.
It's no Uncharted. But I just like what they've done with the reboot. It's a classic example of modernising a game, but sort of retaining the spirit of the original game, but in a new setting. And I mean, I always like the Tomb Raider games on the first PlayStation. I'm a big fan of what they try and do with Tomb Raider. And this game has like the optional tombs are like these little puzzle sequences that are very clever. There's a really good section in it where you have to drain this like ancient bath, which is like in order to get to this treasure, you have to work out how
Granny's bath.
Granny's bath, yeah. You have to work out how you actually drain the water out of all these different areas in order to unlock this sort of tablet at the end of it. And it's a really good puzzle. Stuff like that I really like.
Just saying. Could you guys imagine how awesome it would be if we had a Lara Croft and Nathan Drake crossover?
I think it'd be brilliant. I mean,
that would be awesome.
Don't even
as
say
long
that.
As Naughty Dog did the writing.
Oh, God,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's more than likely never going to happen, because why sell one game when you can sell 2? But that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Well, what you could do is actually sell 3 games, because you have a Lara Croft game and you have a Nathan Drake game, and then you have them tie in to the crossover game. So then you get 3 games out of it. Crossover. So that's, you see, money pit cool. There, right there.
That's you greedy bastard, Joe.
I should be working for EA.
Yeah.
All right, well...
Sorry, go on.
All right, I'll give you my number 5. That was quite the detailed explanation for your number 5. I don't think mine's going to be quite that long, but mine is shamefully The Division. And that's because I like loot, I like stats, it's like crack, and I like crack.
Fair enough. I like crack. Sully, 2016.
No, I mean, in all seriousness, the Division for me, the single player in the story is trash. It's garbage. And the game at launch was incomplete. But for me, it was more the end game kind of activities. And for me, it's the same reason I liked Destiny, which was the cooperative modes. You know, go do, each week they'd have a level which was considered the ultra impossible hard mode, and you'd be rewarded with extremely rare, hard to get gear. And you'd spend 6 hours with your buddies trying to do this one level, and you'd have super slow progression, but it was so much fun. Like the whole teamwork aspect of it that's what I love about games, being able to stay up late with your buddies and chip away at something and have shits and gigs and get a sense of accomplishment after you're done and be able to still tell stories about that night in weeks to come. It's the whole social aspect, and that's what I liked about The Division. That's
what makes games good, isn't it? Those sort of stories. I played The Division. I played it to, funnily enough, I think the top level was it level 30?
32, I think. Oh, 30,
right.
It might be 30. Yeah, 30.
I got to, funny enough, because I do each area bit by bit, the map, and I'd move on to like the next one, and I got to like level 29, and I just suddenly thought, I don't want to play this anymore. And it was funny because up to that point, I actually really liked The Division. I sort of got into what it was trying to do, which was like this sort of RPG crossover with like an FPS or like a third-person shooter, I guess. And I bought into it, and I thought the setting was a really good idea, having this like New York after an outbreak. And I like the fact all these streets were deserted. You could see these people trying to rummage, trying to get food. There was like bandits everywhere. And I thought the atmosphere of the game, much. Yeah, the atmosphere of the game, I thought it was really well done, but it just...
Yeah, I agree on that one, actually. I agree with that part of the game. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I just felt it was repetitive. And that's what
became empty to me very quickly.
Yeah, but I totally get why people like it. I think it has a lot of positives. Along with the sort of flaws of the game as well. I never experienced the Dark Zone, for instance, but I know some people really like that aspect.
The Dark Zone's kind of where it becomes its own game and what it's probably meant to be. Like, that's where the social aspect comes into it, because obviously when you're playing outside the Dark Zone, you can't join up with your buddies. You have to go into the Dark Zone to play with them. And you're rolling around, taking on mobs and bosses and all that. And that, to me, is where it shines.
It's a different game now, isn't it, with this survival DLC?
Yeah,
that does interest me.
DLC, but...
Yeah, that does, because what I saw of it makes it look like a lot more. It's got more of a hook now. This idea you've got to survive, and scavenge for food and weapons and stuff, and you've got a certain amount of time before you. It's interesting. I like that.
Okay, so shall I give you my number 5?
Yeah.
Fez.
Say again.
Fez.
I have to tell you, though, before I actually say my number 5, most of these you can move around. The only one that really sticks out is the number 1, and that would not move. But the others can probably be interchanged. But well, maybe this one not. It's probably the most controversial one I'm gonna put out there, and that's Quantum Break. And a lot of people hated this game. So yeah, well, I think a lot of the people who hated it were probably Sony guys who never played it, but
I think it deserves a spot in the top 5, especially if you predominantly play on Xbox.
Yeah, I think do you know what, it suffered from the fact that it was a leftover from that launch of the Xbox, and it came out later, but it was talked about around about the launch time, and it was one of the games that was the one of the big games for the Xbox One. And so after everybody had that nasty taste in their mouth after the reveal and everything, and all the shit that went on about, the DRM and all that kind of crap, Quantum Break kind of got dragged into that. And I think that left people waiting to look at it and say something bad about it when it came out. And there were things that, you could say about it that weren't that great. But I think that they tried to do stuff with it that was different. Some of it for the wrong reasons, going back to what I just said, and the idea of they were trying to get into TV and all that kind of stuff, the multimedia shit. But the TV show that actually went with the game was actually pretty solid. The gameplay was pretty solid. The story was great. Yeah, exactly. And I actually think that when you play the game, it's actually really enjoyable. And the story, and oh God, some of the reviews, and you got this from me earlier on when we were going on before the cast, that, you know, I'm a big science fiction fan, and I'm really into the time travel thing. And there's an awful lot of stuff out there that does time travel really, really badly. And ultimately, time travel can't be done perfectly because it's time travel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But this game does it actually really well. It's not a MacGuffin. It's not just there to give the main character superpowers, like one review said that, oh, you know, it's just there so he can, you know, run around quickly and do special power things, you know. But that's not the case at all. It was actually central to the whole plot and setup of the game, and there were some really nice little touches in it as well. You said earlier on, Grant, about you like going through the game and there's little text things that you can read, and it, you know, it can be quite humorous and stuff. There's some really good stuff in this where you go around in the game and you can read this sort of story unfolding that this guy's writing about a time travel thing that's going on, and it's really crap. You know, this guy's writing this really crap time, and it's really funny because it's referencing back to their, you know, to the game. So I thought there were some nice little touches in it.
Isn't there? I mean, I haven't played the game, obviously. When I saw it being sort of previewed like earlier in the year, and when it was released, there were some YouTube videos I was watching of, you know, some people streaming like the first hour of the game and stuff. I mean, I thought it looked really compelling. I mean, I love that sort of game. I mean, I'm looking forward to picking it up soon because
I think the
just
awesome.
getting an Xbox, you know, it's one of those games that I missed out on that I want to experience, you know, and I just like that type of game, you know.
Well, we were saying that the Xbox lacks those type of games, weren't we? The sort of narrative-driven games. And here we get a narrative-driven game, and people are going, "Ooh, don't want to play that." Well, I would say go and pick it up and try it. It's short. That is a criticism that some people have had. I don't mind short games.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I'm quite happy with that because I get to play for like an hour a night if I'm lucky, you know? So a game that's a bit shorter and a bit more focused is fine by me, you know?
I mean, just touching briefly on the length of games, I just finished Titanfall 2 single-player campaign. That was only 8 hours. And that's probably at a push. That's because I'm not that good compared to some people who might finish it in about 6. But
me about 18,
it's just the right length. Yeah. Because if they'd have added, like, if they'd have stretched that story out further, it would have looked like it was being artificially extended for the sake of it. And it wouldn't have actually fitted in with the story that they were trying to tell. Because it's just a vehicle to teach you the mechanics of the game for the multiplayer. But in doing that, they told a really good story in its own right. And I think there's nothing wrong, like you say, with Quantum Break being short, as long as what you get is worth it. You know, that's what I would say. I'm looking forward to playing it.
No, it's one that I missed also that I look forward to probably picking up early next year. It just came out at an unfortunate time. Like, I just got my PlayStation and I had a lot of catch up to do with the Uncharted series. And
wasn't it around the same time as Uncharted 4? Or?
Yeah, and the collection came out. I just missed it. But I my Xbox was kind of locked away for a short period of time there when I got my PS4.
I'm not surprised.
Have you seen that thing?
Have I seen what thing?
Yeah.
Let's not go there.
that's an entirely different
comments.
Subject. Yeah.
Right, Grant, do you want to give us your next one?
Okay, yeah. So my number 4, which you might not be surprised by because I've just put the video up today for it, is Watch Dogs 2. And again, this was one that when I was looking at my list about, say, a week ago, and I had my top 10 games of the year. It's one of those games that sort of snuck in that I didn't expect to actually get in the top 5 at all. And the reason why it's in there is because I mean, I've nearly finished the game. I'm actually on the last campaign mission at the moment, and I've probably been playing it. God, I couldn't tell you actually how long I've been playing it, but it must be about 60 hours, I would say, roughly. But for an open world game, that's actually short. I mean, compared to something like Skyrim, but then that's huge in its own right. But the reason why it's in there is because earlier in the year, I bought Mafia 3, which I was expecting to be like a brilliant open world where all the missions are like really compelling. But what Mafia 3 did wrong is it made everything too similar. So once you completed the main missions, you did all the others in the same methodical manner. And it became so repetitive and so boring because there was literally no variety. You'd probably get 1 or 2 missions that had some variety where it was like a car chase or something. But what Watch Dogs gives you, every single mission was designed to allow you to experience a little bit of variety in terms of how you approached it and how you use the mechanics of the game. So you might have one mission where you had to solve like a hacking puzzle. You might have another where you had to sneak into a base and disable something using either your hacking tools, or you can go in and shoot people if you want, but it feels like it's against the spirit of the game.
Yeah.
Because it gives you all these non-lethal methods to complete objectives, and they're actually worth using. Whereas in some games, you don't bother with them because it takes too long. In Watch Dogs, they're very clever and they're distraction tools. So I would plan routes through these different levels, and each mission I would do something slightly different from the last one. And that's why I kept playing it, because it had so much variety. But not only that, all the collectibles were actually worth collecting. You know how in some open world games you think, well, why would I bother collecting all this sort of stuff that's scattered around the map, because it's a waste of time. But what they would do is they give you like upgrade points, and you go and pick up these things that were like, say, difficult to get to, and you might see something on top of a building, and you think, well, how am I going to get to that? And then you notice that there's a crane across the street. If you hack, it could lift you up and send you across a rooftop. And it's stuff like that would keep me interested. And also the characters for an Ubisoft game are actually really well done. The lead guy, he's a black guy. Ooh, dangerous, edgy. He's actually, he's not stereotypical.
Does he kiss any blokes?
No, he doesn't kiss anyone. He doesn't kiss a white woman, for controversy. He's not a cliche. He's actually quite funny, and the whole thing's just really light-hearted. It takes the piss out of itself as well, and it's not afraid to sort of to have something to say about sort of modern life in terms of our privacy and how we use mass forms of communication and how susceptible we are to our data, protecting our personal data and things like that. So it does have something to say, but at the same time, it makes the whole thing really tongue-in-cheek, very light-hearted, just a lot of fun to play. That's why I like it, and that's why it's in the top 5, because we know where some games take themselves really seriously. I was thinking of Skyrim. Before I was playing Watch Dogs, I was playing a lot of Skyrim, and Skyrim's great, but it's all a bit serious. And as soon as I started playing Watch Dogs, I thought, well, this is just really good fun. Because even just the incidental conversations, you walk past people in the street, they start randomly having a fight, like an argument. And I was playing it once, and they started punching each other. Then someone else joined in, and like 5 people were just standing outside by this fountain having a punch up. And then the police turn up. And it's like everyone's got their own personality in the game, even like the passers by. And they do this random shit, or they say stuff to you that's like completely, non-scripted. And I love stuff like that in games, where they go to that attention to detail. And that's it. That's pretty much why it's there. It surprised me, because the first game...
it surprised me when I saw it in your number 5 as well, especially as a follow-up to number 1. Like, I was going, how good could this game possibly be? And then I saw it pop up in your number 5, and I was like, maybe I need to give this game some more attention. I mean, I don't know if I'll go back and play it, because I'm not sure it's my kind of game anyway.
No, but I think it's so different.
So different
I think
I've also got I think for me it had a stigma attached to it as well, following the first one. But I think you've probably blown that away now.
I liked the first one as well. I thought the first one was better than a lot of people said it was. It wasn't great, but it was better than, it wasn't as shit as people said. It's another game I think that got, got affected by the fact that it was initially, when it was first revealed, there was all this shit about it. It looked fantastic, and then when it actually was released, it was nowhere near like what they were promising. So I think then the gameplay and everything else got looked at, through a very dark and negative light.
I think that affected its sales. Without a shadow of a doubt, the stigma of the first game affected the sales of the second one, I think.
Yeah.
Because people expected it to be, again, something. But I think I don't know if you noticed, but they didn't say anything about this sequel, Ubisoft. They just let it speak for itself as a game.
Yeah.
And that came out in the reviews. It's getting a lot of 8s out of 10. And like I said, it's not sold. It's sold like half of the first game or something, which is ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
In the UK, especially, it was like 50% down on the first game, the first week's sales of the first game.
Mm.
But it's one of these games that I think people will sort of pick up after having missed it the first time around, and they'll think, "Well, this is actually quite good." But I think a lot of people
start picking it up cheap when it drops in price, and it will start getting a bit more of a following them, maybe.
I hope people will appreciate it, but I can understand if they didn't at the same time. Okay, that's me anyway.
Sully, your next one?
Gears of War 4.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Never heard of it.
For me, this was a... Oh, okay. No, me, this was a hard one to place because I feel like I probably could have had it in the third position easily, but my top 3 are pretty competitive. But Gears of War 4, I've played all the original trilogy, but this is something slightly different than the original trilogy, like I've talked to you guys before. It's a much more focused, narrative-driven experience, and it's about the children of the previous generation of Gears, like Marcus's son, JD, his band of friends, and it's almost a passing of the baton from the old generation and the old Gears, which I don't want to make any spoilers, but they do appear throughout the campaign in small roles here and there, except Marcus Phoenix. He's featured fairly heavily throughout the game, and that's not a spoiler. It's a much smaller story, though. It's a much more intimate story about the characters, and it sets up the rest of the trilogy, I think. And it was refreshing to have a campaign, especially for a Gears of War game, where it's not just about, dude bro shooters saving the universe and the world from annihilation. This is about saving someone's mother and their friends, and it was just a very refreshing experience. And it wasn't the longest campaign, but it didn't outstay its welcome. I felt like it was about 6 hours, and I feel like they did a really nice, tidy, tight package with the story. And on top of that, in my opinion, the multiplayer was on point. The Horde mode was fantastic.
Yeah.
And it just rolled into one really nice package. And just going back to the multiplayer, in my opinion, it's better than all the previous multiplayers, almost combined. It's fantastic.
That day when I sat down and played Horde mode with you was fantastic. I don't know if it's fantastic for you because you were saddled with me, but it was it was a great experience, and it would be something that I'd want to play again. And I've been playing through the campaign as well, and I've not finished it yet. I must be probably 80% through it by now. But I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and it's a much more intimate story.
Yeah, what I've noticed with number 4, it's got a lot of hidden lore kind of laid in there as well, which you won't necessarily pick up on unless you've played. Even if you played the original games like me, there was things that I missed in there that I was like, oh, hang on a second. When you start looking at reviews and spoiler discussions of the game, you're like, oh, this is interesting. It's a lot deeper than I think what people give it credit for.
It's really, I think this one's really tight, isn't it? Because even when you're getting the bits where they're walking along ready for the next set piece or whatever, the dialogue they're having actually, as you say, it gives you information about what's happened before and what's going on in the universe. And the way they've done that, it's not. Often in games that feels really clunky. And okay, if you really analyse it here, it probably is quite clunky that, you've got characters within a game telling each other about things within the game. And, that's something that happens in science fiction as well. But it doesn't feel clunky where you're playing it. It feels kind of fluid and
organic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly right, yeah.
Sounds good. You've sold it to me.
Yep. Get it, yeah.
I would recommend it being one of your first games to play. I think you'll be surprised because There's a stigma attached to Gears of War now, where it is just a stupid dude bro shooter, and the stories are more or less just your B-grade action flick story. But this one it's something different, and it's more refined and focused than even the first Gears of War, which I think was a very small, intimate story.
Yeah.
And then number 2 and 3 just blew it out of the water with these wide-scale planetary disasters and attacks and all that.
This is the thing, when I did briefly have an Xbox 360, I actually got Gears of War 2 with it as like a bundled game, but I never actually played it. And the reason was I bought my 360, I might have mentioned this before, just to play Final Fantasy 11, and all the games I got with it ended up getting traded in. So I've never actually played a Gears of War game. So I was just wondering, is it okay to start with number 4?
It's a standalone experience. I mean, you might get lost with some of the lore, but the story, it's set, I think, 20 years after the original trilogy. And, it's about you've defeated the Horde, the Queen's dead, the world's saved, and it's about the world coming back together under the COG regime. And again, the old, enemies start to come back into it. And it's about the new characters being exposed to this mysterious enemy that's returned, which they don't really know what's going on. And I don't want to say too much because I'm trying to tiptoe around the edge of spoilers.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, I understand that. No, I probably will get it. Yeah, I mean, it's cheap at the moment, so...
And it looks fantastic as well. It looks amazing. The weather effects and everything in it. And just, you especially when you play it on the Xbox, you're thinking, how the bloody hell are they doing this with the Xbox? I thought it was supposed to be underpowered. And it looks great on there. Looks better really, on the PC, but it's still... It's not.
Yeah,
marginal,
it's not that much different.
No, the last time I was blown away by a game, an Xbox game, would have been on the previous generation with the 360 being Halo 4. Like, you saw that game ship and you're like, oh my God, like, this looks incredible for a 360 game, especially at the end of its life cycle. And I got that same kind of impact from Gears of War. I was like, I did not think the Xbox could do this.
There's another game that blows me away like that, but I'll get to that later.
Ooh, top 3 spoilers.
Should we move on to Joe's then?
Yeah, so it's my next one is something I never thought I'd put something like this into a top 5 of my games, and that's Inside. And I know you're going to like this one as well, Grant.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
It's such a tight game. Everything about it just works from the moment you play it. I mean, there's 2 buttons you have to press in the game. It's a side scroller, which I normally don't really get on with. But it's dark, it's disturbing, it's thought-provoking, it's haunting, all those words, It's got elements of, well, it is a dystopia. And, it reminds you early on, you're reminded of kind of 1984. And then later on, it kind of morphs into a Borosian Cronenberg hybrid body horror thing,
Yeah, it's difficult isn't it? You don't want to say too much without spoiling it, but it does have a very bizarre last third of the game.
It does, yeah. But it's we've discussed this before. It's a haunting game, and you constantly, well, I am anyway, maybe I'm just nuts, but I'm constantly going back and thinking about it, and what was it all about, what was it really about? And I know I could go online and read what people have to say about it, but I'm quite interested in what's going on in my own head about it, and how I interact with that game in a way that normally you would do that with something like art, or if you go around a gallery or whatever. I always used to say, if I go around a gallery, I don't want to wear the headset. I want to go around, the first time I go around, I want to go around and experience it for myself, not what somebody else tells me to experience. And so I'm like that with this. But for me to want to be like that with the game, to be that invested in a game that's actually 3-4 hours long, I think it was.
Yeah, about 4 hours max. Yeah.
But the time you spend with it after playing it is significant, because it keeps coming back up. And I know I've said that several times now, but it's anyway. Sorry, go on, Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say a lot about it because it's on my list, and I'm not going to say where it's on my list, but what I will say is it stays with you in the way that I sort of can only compare it to when you read a really good book and you put the book down and the last page or the ending of the novel kind of sticks in your mind, or you've just finished watching a film that you can't shake off. I used to feel like that about when I watched the director's cut of Blade Runner, which is one of my favourite movies.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The ending of Blade Runner is so poignant because it has something to say about what life actually means, and how precious it is. And Inside kind of has something to say about life as well and about existence. And it's difficult to actually quantify exactly what it is trying to say, but because it's deliberately ambiguous.
And the fact that a game does that, because games just don't do that generally.
No, they don't.
Games usually just give it by the numbers. It gives you everything.
Yeah.
This doesn't give you very much at all, really. It sounds like I'm criticising it. It doesn't. You play through the game and you have to fill in all the gaps yourself, and that engages you in a way that many games just don't even get close to.
No, they don't.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I'm glad you guys have tiptoed around spoilers, because this is actually my number one. I guess is it an indie title? It's an indie title, isn't it?
It's an indie title, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I find it hard to categorize these games these days because the lines are so blurred these days.
Yeah,
but it's my number one title and indie title that I intend to play over the Christmas period when I take a bit of time off from YouTube. Because from what you guys have told me about it, it sounds fantastic, and I thoroughly enjoyed Limbo. And from what I understand, this is the next level. Like, it sounds fantastic.
Yeah, this is like Limbo on steroids.
Yeah.
The thing is with Inside is, I heard someone else say this on a YouTube channel, and I completely agree with it. It's one of those games where everything that is in the game is there for a reason and a purpose. There is nothing that's kind of like non-essential in the game. The way the character moves through the game world, all these actions, all the mechanics are very, very deliberately constructed to create this experience while you're playing the game. And it's one of the best games I've played of any game, including AAA titles, at creating an oppressive sort of atmosphere and ambience. It's kind of hard to. It's sort of like Orwellian a little bit. It's dystopic, but it's so compelling when you're actually playing it. You're completely lost in what it's trying to convey, and it takes you along. It sort of takes you along on it's like a fairground ride or something. You feel like you're part of this experience, and you're confused but sort of amazed at the same time. It's difficult to kind of eloquently explain what it is as an experience.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Have you guys played Ori and the Blind Forest?
No, I haven't. I've heard that that's quite good though.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I've played all the way through. If it came out this year, it would be on my list. But it sounds very similar. A lot of similar themes from what you're saying that the Inside Out has. It's got a lot of hidden meaning, and it's very layered. And from the start, it's Ori and the Blind Forest. It's very innocent by nature, and so is the character throughout the entire game. But it progressively gets a lot darker and darker and darker. And, you see this character who is so innocent just being affected and crushed by it.
Yeah. Have you played Child of Light by any chance? Because Child of Light is kind of that sounds like it's quite similar, because that's like a basic RPG, but it has this dark undertone where you're not sure if the character you're playing is you're actually controlling in the afterlife.
Oh,
it's
right.
It's very deliberately ambiguous as to sort of to get you to question whether what you're actually doing is real, or whether it's the character's journey through the last moments
That's interesting.
of her life. And it's her fantasy, basically. It's her fantasy of what would happen or what she'd want to be, because she's like fantasizing about being this princess and having all these powers.
Yeah.
So it's like, is this real, or is she imagining it?
Almost at that last minute spark of life, dreams and hopes flashing before your eyes and all that kind of stuff. That's interesting. I like that. It also reminds me of The Journey that came out a few years ago as well, where you're not sure what you're traveling towards. Is this real? Is this a dream? It's
Journey. I could talk about for hours. It's one of the few games that actually made me cry. Really, really made me cry at the end. I just found it so powerful emotionally. And I've spoken to someone else who had the same experience.
You told me the other day that FIFA makes you cry.
Yeah, in a different way.
Yeah, you and me both, mate.
Tears of frustration. The mechanics.
Just going back a little bit though, if you're going to play anything when you get time, pick up Ori and the Blind Forest, Grant, because I think you'll probably love it and appreciate it on probably even a deeper level than I did. And if you like platformers, it's also a fantastic platformer, and it almost has a lot of Metroid mechanics built into it as well, whereas you got to go through and collect power-ups that you keep, and you can't unlock certain areas until you have certain power-ups. So it's very It's like a labyrinth, a very layered labyrinth, and it's really good. I can't rate it high enough.
Apparently the mechanics on it are absolutely spot on as well. I was reading an interview with the guy, one of the main guys who designed it, and he was saying that, they basically, when they first designed it, they were absolutely keen to nail the mechanics, that they wanted to get that spot on.
And I believe they were actually aiming for certain Metroid mechanics in the game as well, because it inspired them. So I think you'll love it, Grant.
Yeah, someone was saying that they did recommend it, but I also heard that it's meant to be really hard. Is that true or not?
Well, if you're a platformer, then I wouldn't say so. I didn't find some sections are challenging, but nothing that a platform player wouldn't be able to easily conquer.
Yeah,
rules me out then.
I played a lot of platformers, and I got through. There were some bits of inside that I found quite hard, especially the underwater bits.
They were great though.
They were fantastic.
If you go into Ori and the Blind Forest not understanding what it requires, it could be challenging, because you could quite easily hit a wall and go, I can't get up there, but I don't know how to progress, and you end up banging your head against the wall. But if you go into an understanding that it's like Metroid, and you do have to do a little bit of exploration and collect power-ups, and realize that I need certain power-ups to advance past certain stages, in this labyrinth, then you'll go into it, you'll be fine.
That's interesting, because Child of Light's a bit like that. You have to go back to these areas that you can't get through because you don't have the right key to a door, you can't unlock certain sections, so I'm sort of used to that as an idea, and I played Super Metroid on the SNES where you had to do that, and I love Metroid. I think it's a fantastic series. So a good recommendation. That's definitely on my list. I'm going to make a note of it.
It's just been on my list for a while, actually. It's one that I really want to play.
Yeah, definitely.
Shall we move on though, guys? I'm not sure. I think we're back to Grant again now, aren't we? We're back to you, Grant.
Yes. Okay, well, I'm not sure how to do this because obviously I haven't released my 3, 2 and 1 videos yet, but what I'm going to do is my 3 remaining games, I'm going to say what they are, but I'm not going to put them in necessarily the right order, just to confuse you, because otherwise
I'll throw a gag one in to really confuse people, like No Man's Sky.
Okay, so the next one is Farming Simulator 2017. What I particularly liked about this game was the combine harvester. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, number 3, or is it? Question mark.
Ooh.
Uncharted 4.
Okay.
Uncharted 4. What can I say about Uncharted 4? Well, I'll say this. I played the first 3 Uncharted games, but actually, shockingly enough, I never actually finished number 3. For some reason, I bought it at the end of when I had the PS3, and I ended up getting the Uncharted collection for PS4, playing through the first 2 games, completing the first one and like 3/4 of the second one, and then deleting it from my hard drive because I needed the space. And then suddenly Uncharted 4 came out, and I sat down and played it over a space of about a week, and then I think I finished it, and it was just a completely brilliant experience. Now the reason why it's not necessarily my number 1 game of the year is because I felt it was a little too narrative heavy in the first half of the game, and it could have done with a little bit more gameplay and a little bit more exploration in terms of introducing you to the mechanics of the game. I don't want to criticize it too much because from a storytelling perspective and from characterization and the way that the whole of the Uncharted experience was tied up in the epilogue was really, really well done. It's a fantastic game, and it shows how Naughty Dog, with each game, they up the production values. They sort of raise the bar the further on they go, and every game seems to be a little bit better than the last one. But I have heard people say, "Oh, I don't think it's as good as The Last of Us." And no, I personally prefer The Last of Us, but it's
not like apples and oranges though.
It is a little bit. I mean, I don't want to make too much of a comparison because they're slightly different games. But Uncharted 4, what it did really well is it made the combat, because I found the combat in the first 2 Uncharted games a little bit clunky and difficult at times, and I thought Uncharted 4 got it spot on in terms of the combat, because it allowed you to a lot more freedom in how you can approach sort of enemy encounters. The stealth was really well implemented, I thought, and if all hell broke loose, it gave you all these little toys to play with to kind of move through these little sections. and it made for some really exciting fights and battles, and some of the scenery. I mean, the game is one of the most beautiful games I've ever looked
Scottish
at or
level.
seen on PS4. I was constantly taking screenshots and sending them to a friend of mine. Go, look at this, look at this.
When you got to Scotland and there's the snow and oh my god, when it sort of panned out to the scene, and I just looked at it and I just sat there for a bit and just looked at it and I'm thinking, Christ, this is amazing. I just was enjoying being in that world.
And Madagascar as well. And that was
amazing.
That's red sand. Everything popped.
Yeah.
It was that vibrant in that game. It was perfect.
And the Jeep section where you're traveling, you're stopping off at these different points, and
some of the draw distances as well. In that Madagascar level, where you're scaling really high up. It's so huge. It's so detailed as well.
Yeah, you're thinking. I mean, I honestly thought it looked good as, if not better than, a lot of high-end PC games, because I really couldn't tell the difference. I think Naughty Dog are really good at like pushing PlayStation hardware. You think what they did with The Last of Us on PS3. I mean, it's difficult to believe that The Last of Us was actually on the PS3 when you look at how good it looked. If you look at, say, the first Uncharted in 2006, was it, and then you look at The Last of Us, you think that's the same hardware.
It's like looking at a 64 and then comparing it to a 360.
Yeah. That's how good. That's why they're so good, because they push themselves to make better games visually, tonally, and narratively with each game that they make.
Yeah, they seem very driven, like in every aspect of their games. Like, whoever they've got employed there that do work on the engines and pushing the hardware, they obviously have a passion for doing so, and they've now built up this reputation for doing so. And I think it's going to continue on, like, just full stop. And I think it's the same in every aspect of development for, Uncharted or The Last of Us games.
Yeah,
they're just driven and passionate about it.
I mean, even the Crash Bandicoot ones are looking pretty good. The remaster.
The Last of Us was a more intimate story, and it was about personal relationships. This is much more sort of big and bold and in your face. And okay, there's the whole stuff with his wife and Sully and their interactions, and there are very good character developments in terms of a game. I mean, if you compare it to books and movies and stuff, it's still below that level a lot of the time. But for a game, it's extremely well done, and you do get drawn into this idea of being in this massive vista, and it does make you feel kind of, I don't know. There was one bit in it where, do you remember where I don't want to give spoilers away too much, but there's a bit where he lies to his wife.
Yes.
And that was a real moment for me, because I felt myself going, no, don't lie to her. You don't have to lie to her. And I was
it sort of made me cringe a bit, actually. It was like, you feel his reaction, don't you, while you're...
Exactly, yeah. And again, that's, how many games do that? I mean, you just don't get that in games very much. And I know I keep saying stuff like this, but, it's really nice to have that kind of game out there. And I don't know. Maybe I'm a convert or whatever, but Naughty Dog can do no wrong in my view at the moment.
You Sony pony.
Hold on a minute.
Just out of curiosity, I'll clip the audio. I'll clip the audio file in, Joe. Don't worry. You already said about the half-hour mark that you said I must be crazy or something. I'm already planning on clipping that file in there. Just out of curiosity, what is everyone's favorite Uncharted game? Are we going with 4?
Yes,
if you had to pick one.
For me, it's just above 2, because 2 I really liked. I mean, 2 had some really cinematic moments, but I would say 4 is my personal favourite, yeah.
I would probably almost agree with that. I think I have to go number 2. I think I enjoyed the story of number 2 better. But again, I mean, if I could have number 2 in the Uncharted 4 engine, then it's a no contest for me. It's a no-brainer. I'd go number 2.
I mean, I will go back and finish number 3 sometime, because I want to, for the sense of completion, of the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, it's asked about face for me because I've got an admission to make here in as much as I bought the Uncharted collection before Uncharted 4 came out because I didn't have a PS3 with the sole intention of playing through them all before Uncharted 4 came out. And then Uncharted 4 came out and I put it in and thought, I'll just have a look at this, see if it's, get it installed, see if it's okay. And I started playing it. Next thing I know, I'm like well into it and I played all the way through it, got to the end, thought this is brilliant and thought, fuck, I better go back now and play the others. So I'm still sort of working my way through the others at the moment, and I haven't actually finished the first one, so I haven't played Uncharted 2. So I cannot make a comparison. I'm in no position.
Interesting place to start, actually. You might appreciate them on a different level. I don't know, but
you might think. I have a feeling if you've played 4 first, if you go and play 1 now, you're going to be thinking, what the fuck is this? Is this the same? Part
Funny
of the
enough,
same series.
Do you know what? I'm still really enjoying it, but it feels very clunky.
Yeah, the combat in the first game is just not very good. Now,
the first game to me was like a climbing simulator with a good narrative, and the combat was like, "Please don't make me do this. Please don't make me do this." But
it's actually quite short as well. The first game, I think it's only about 10 hours. It's not.
Yeah, well, that suits me.
The difference in quality between number 1 and 2 is staggering.
Yeah, I've read that.
Every possible way. It's staggering. Yeah. Number 2 to 3 is not so much. Like there is a slight graphical leap, very slight, and the mechanics and gameplay and the smoothness of the mechanics it's marginally probably better again as well. But you'll notice it when you jump between number 1 and 2. It's drastic.
Number 3 is apparently only about 6 hours long, and 2 hours of that are cutscenes.
Bloody
hell. It's actually
number
quite.
3.
That's what I've heard.
No, number 3, it's widely debated that it's the misstep in the franchise. And Naughty Dog have covered this themselves about how they kind of, after number 1 and then especially after number 2, it became this massive hit franchise and they wanted to end the trilogy on a massive high, and the scale, they wanted huge scale. And I remember reading that they were actually just designing and building these huge play spaces before they even knew how they fit into the game. And to me, that's a little bit bizarre, and they were going into detail about how it was probably not the best way to go about it, but I think it ended up a little bit.
Yeah, it ended up with Amy Hennig leaving the company after number 3, and I think there was a bit of a falling out there, which it affected the development of that game, but it's not really talked about much by Naughty Dog for obvious reasons.
It's not a bad game. It's still a fantastic game, but you can tell that somewhere in there, it's hard to pinpoint the exact location, but it does get a little bit lost. And
it was a difficult third album, wasn't it?
The reason why I stopped playing it is because it had this bizarre sequences in it. There was this bit where this I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's Cutter, where he ended up like hallucinating. He started attacking Nathan Drake, and I'm thinking, what the fuck's going on
right.
there?
That does get very interesting later on, though, when Drake actually finds himself in similar shoes. And there's some very interesting scenes regarding Drake and Sully towards the end of the game.
Right.
I won't spoil it, but it's not very often in a game that a game will make me do a double take and question what has happened, or just straight up believe what's happened.
They kissed.
Yeah.
They had full-on man-on-man sex. Bareback action.
They took drugs, and it may have been a porno. I don't know. You don't know because they took drugs, and then it was like 10 hours later. You know, it's time skip, and you're back in it.
Sorry, guys. Spoilers.
Yeah. That's me anyway.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I don't think you guys are going to have much to say on this one because I don't think you guys have played it. But Rainbow Siege.
Okay. Did that come out last year though?
Fuck, maybe.
I thought it came
out my bad. I'm still counting it.
Okay, fair enough. I think you sort of can because it gets developed over time, doesn't it? Like new content.
Well, they said they're supporting a second year, so I would have taken that it came out as DLC wise anyway. So I thought it came out at the start of the year, and they did this year, and they're doing next year.
That's fair enough. I think you might be right.
Anyway, it's a fantastic game. It's the perfect FPS crack. You know, it's only multiplayer. It's only, I think it's 5v5. You guys understand what the game is. It's, one team defends, one team attacks, different objectives. You have to breach rooms, take out the enemy teams. But it's such a focused, refined multiplayer experience. Like it's almost like they took the search and destroy mode out of Call of Duty and went, how can we expand upon this. That's what I believe it is anyway. It's one of those games you have to be into anyway. Like, you have to like those kind of search and destroy 5v5 games. But, you know, there's so many different classes in the game. The squad and team mechanics are so diverse. And it's one of those games where I come back to. It's so much fun playing with your buddies after work late into the night. Yeah. And having crazy stories to tell next day. That's what it's about for me. And I played it for donkeys, this game. I played it forever. I'll probably play it again next year as well. Now, there's more content coming out, but it's my number 3, and it's arguably could even be number 2. But
does it have Terrorist Hunt?
Does it have Terrorist Hunt? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm in then. I'm game for that one. I'll come and play with at that. You can carry me. You can carry me in Terrorist Hunt.
Just the eliminate the enemy opposition, or is that the one where you verse the AI? I can't remember.
That's where you take on the AI, and it's it's co-op against the AI.
Yeah. That's got some. There's actually some pretty hard modes for that. Like, the hard mode it's quite unrelenting.
See, I like that though, because it means I can hang back and let everyone else carry me. So it's.
They say the enemy will happily flank you, flashbang you, pin you on the ground, and rape you. Like,
sounds great. I'm in.
There's no hanging back. It's balls to the wall with your flashbangs, and you go. That's what I love about it. That's what I love about it, though. It's fantastic. It's one of those real adrenaline pumping games, especially when it's your whole team's been killed and it's just you left, and you have to kill like 3 or 4 guys, the majority of the enemy team. It's just a real adrenaline stuff, and when you pull it off, you drop the mic and you leave the room. Like, it's just fantastic.
Is it advisable to make sure your balls are pressed against the wall in case the enemy team are trying to rape you?
Yes, I believe there are wall-leaning mechanics built into the game for that very reason.
That's brilliant. My kind of game. Oh, you sold it. I mean, I personally, I would play a game like that, and I did play the older Rainbow Six games on the original Xbox, and they're good. It's a great series, I think. But the fact is, I play so much of Overwatch, I couldn't really start another one of those type of games. But if I wasn't, I would investigate it, because I've seen it for sale on PSN, like really cheap, and that includes like all of the additional content as well. So
I actually own it, but I've not played it yet. I bought it with the.
Is it one of your pile of shame?
yeah, the ever-growing pile of shame. Yeah,
it's got a big learning curve. It's got a big learning curve, though. I mean, I remember I think I've told you these guys before. I remember picking it up, and I couldn't get into it. I'd put it down for about almost a month, and I decided to pick it back up again and really got into it. Just warning, if you do start playing, Joe.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, because I'll be crap after playing it for 10 years. But there'll be some newbie comes on, has never played it before, and's owning me after about 10 seconds.
I've got a bit of a dirty tactic you could probably use, Joe, and that is you basically throw C4 at one of the destructible doors, and you lay down far enough back on the ground so you can see people's feet underneath the door, and you just blow it up when they come near the door.
Oh, that sounds good. I like that
sounds
idea.
my sort of tactic. That's definitely my sort of tactic.
The thing is, with those sort of games, you can always find one way of like killing people cheaply if you work it out. It's like I had this one of the maps on Battlefront when I used to play it. I think it was one of the Death Star maps. But if you knew that you're playing against noobs, because if you stood at this one corridor just after the matches started, I used to run to this point in this corridor and stand there and watch as like 3 people funneled down it, and I just mowed them all down one after the other. And they, some of the more experienced people just wouldn't fall for it, but you could tell that wherever they were noobs, they would just like walk towards you. If you got the right gun, you can just like take them out really quickly.
I'm trying to remember the game years ago where it was an online shooter. I can't remember which one it was. You could rocket jump above the spawn point.
Oh, not Quake, was it?
It was one of that era, but I can't remember. It may have been one of the Unreal games actually.
Unreal Tournament.
Yeah. But you could rocket jump yourself up above the spawn point. I never did it. I saw someone else doing it. Honest. And
I think that's
you basically
ET 2004.
Hover
maybe.
about. Yeah, you sort of sit on this ledge above the spawn point, and you could just like shoot at people as they spawned. It was. It was crap. No, I never.
Yeah.
I never did it, honestly. I never did it.
Yeah, right.
So, shall we move on again?
Yep.
This one's going to be short and sweet. This is me, isn't it? And we've already covered this one, so I'm not going to talk about it for very long. And that's Gears 4.
Ooh.
And so I'm just.
You must have really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. Well, I've had a blast playing this game, and I can't wait to carry on playing it. To be honest, I'm not going to say much more on it now because we've already talked about it. But it's good story, tight controls. Yep. As Sully says, go and buy it.
In fact, I might actually buy it tomorrow because my local shop has it for £20. So.
Oh bloody hell! Definitely buy it for £20.
Yeah, I know. They've got it on offer, so I thought I'm going to pick that up. I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's a nice, tidy, short experience to plow through for your first Xbox game.
Cool.
Grant, what's yours?
Okay, well, there's a theme here, but we've already mentioned it, but it's Inside. Yeah. Now, the reason why it's so high up in my list is because, well, for a lot of the reasons we already talked about, because it stayed with me long after I'd actually finished it, and despite the fact that it is like a short, sweet experience, I thought it's a prime example of how an indie developer can, make a game as affecting and as immersive as like a AAA title, and I think that's its triumph really for Inside. It manages to stand out as a really excellent game, being only 3 hours long, and yet still have that emotional impact, despite it being short and sweet. But like we've already said, it is just the right length. Yeah. And, it's such a brilliantly self-contained experience that I feel, it had that much of an effect on me that it's in my top 5 for the year. So yeah, I don't really want to say much more because we've kind of already covered it, but I love it, and I will go back and play it again at some point.
Yeah, I want to complete it because I've missed a few bits in it as well. But yeah,
and obviously I did a video on it, and I still don't know what it means, but I think that's a good thing because all the best art, literature, and movies, they don't have a definitive answer. It's about how you subjectively interpret it, I think.
Yep.
And that's the good thing about any art that challenges you will keep you thinking about it.
And that is it. That is it with this game. It's art. It is art. It is a game as art, and we don't get enough of that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very
so
good.
That's me.
Right. So Sully.
There is a trend happening here, but my number 2, which could easily be number 1 as well, is Uncharted 4. Enough said. We've covered that as well. Fantastic, top notch. If you haven't played it, just kill yourself.
No, don't kill yourself because then you can't play it.
No. Just play it and then kill yourself.
I'm not doing it so that they should go play. I'm doing it as punishment because they should have played it by now.
Yeah.
You're just mean.
Yeah, you idiots. Go kill yourself.
Are we back around to me again already?
Yeah,
this is going fast now. Yeah, it's going really fast now, which is quite fitting given what my next game's going to be. Can you guess? It's
no.
Forza Horizon 3.
No Man's Sky.
No, yeah.
Oh, shock.
Yeah, Forza Horizon 3. I just this game
it's an interesting
one. I'll tell you what, Grant. You want to see a game looking great on the Xbox, and it looks great on the Xbox. It looks even better on the PC again, but it does look fantastic on the Xbox. And I'll tell you what happened. When I put it on, and I first started playing it, I was giggling like an idiot. Seriously, and we've said this before, but sometimes games these days have got a bit po-faced, and this is the antidote to that. If you want to just have a big smile on your face, put this game in, play it for half an hour, however long you want. You will smile from ear to ear from the moment you start playing to the moment you put it away and go and make yourself a cup of tea or whatever it might be.
Sounds great.
It looks great. It plays fantastically. The handling on it is probably second only to maybe Forza Motorsport, which is a little bit more of a
simulation.
tight. Yeah, exactly. But I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking, what games does it remind me of? And it's like a kind of fusion between Project Gotham Racing, if you remember that one.
I love that game.
Yeah, Burnout and well, Forza Motorsport itself, because it takes some of the handling from that, although it's not as quite as tight as that. And I wrote in my notes, this is like the best fun you will ever have with a racing game. Well, until Horizon 4 comes out, it literally is ear grinning stuff. You're ear to ear. You just sit there and you just have a blast. It's almost the complete antithesis to something like Inside, which I love as well, obviously. But it's just this just epic fun, from the music to the sound of the engines to the visuals. If you don't like racing games, then you need not apply. But if you like racing games, then it is phenomenal. It's the best racing game out there at the moment in terms of the fun you can have with it. Simple as.
Yeah, it's on my list, and it's one of the things that I really missed on the PS4 was a racing game like what you've just described, because all I had to play was Drive Club, and Drive Club I found was a bit too serious. It was broken for its first year. Basically, it didn't work properly. I mean, they did rescue it eventually and turned it into a decent game, but I found it a little too hard. And I think Forza really appeals because I just think it was one of the games that I really wish I could have played on PS4. And now that I've got an Xbox, it's right on my list. Definitely, as I really want to buy it.
you get kudos. It's not called kudos, but you get kudos for driving safely and well. Yeah. So you think brilliant, but then you drive like a bloody idiot. Yeah, and you get kudos for that as well. It's like, oh, I'm going to drive through that farmhouse. Bang! Oh, you got some points. It's fantastic.
And it's set in Australia, and who doesn't love Australia?
Yeah, it is. Exactly. I've heard people create their own sort of stories and narratives around stuff they've done in the game. It's just they've just created this kind of like experience, and they've really got into like almost role playing them.
That's crazy.
While sort of playing the game, creating their own sort of story of their car that they're in and things like that. It's just all the videos that I've watched of it. It looks amazing.
You can get so invested.
It's a beautiful looking game. Yeah, brilliant.
I mean, personally, I don't need to play this game because I live in Australia and I can just drive to the shops and experience it.
Well,
what you're saying is you drive like a maniac.
There's a lot of idiot drivers here, yeah.
At least you drive on the proper side of the road like we do.
Oh, that's true. But are there kangaroos in the game?
Yeah, I think that might be, actually. I can't remember.
Do you get extra points for running them over?
Well, it sounds like they put an unrealistic ratio of kangaroos in there. There should be kangaroos everywhere.
Yeah.
Have you hit any koala bears on the highways or anything?
I don't know. I've not seen
corkscrew hats and
things. There you go.
I haven't seen. Put it this way: it's not that realistic because I haven't seen you when I've been out and about racing.
Me walking down the fucking road in my thongs or whatever.
There's me doing my
billabongs.
Death Race 2000 and running down pedestrians. Yeah.
It was didgeridoo.
It's not a very good representation of Australia by the sounds of it.
Yeah. It's not
last time I checked, Australia doesn't have warthogs. We've got some jeeps.
Oh man. Yeah. And on that note, I think you better move on because otherwise I'm going to just be laughing through the rest of the podcast.
Whose turn is it? It's Grant's, isn't it? Number one. It's mystery top three.
So here, my mystery top three. So here we get to my number one game of 2016, and
drum roll.
It won't be a great surprise because it's the game that I played the most, and it is Overwatch.
Whoa!
Not surprised, no.
It's
also
choice.
GameSpot's number one game of the year. I noticed when I was watching their live broadcast earlier. Why is it my number one game of the year? It is a surprise because I'm not actually the sort of person that would play a competitive shooter. But the reason Overwatch I've played so many hours of it is partly because of the people that I played it with. They made it the sort of fun experience. We have a laugh playing it. We don't take it seriously. Sometimes we do. We get annoyed when we lose, but at the end of the day, the characters are really fun. It's actually incredibly well balanced as a competitive shooter compared to like some games because
Wow. Yeah.
yes, you get a lot of
game.
people. Yeah, it's a Blizzard game and it has such an extraordinary amount of polish. And despite the fact it's only got a few maps, the initial game launched with only probably 6 maps and about 3 or 4 different game modes, but they've added different characters and maps and game modes, and they keep adding free content to the game. So once you've bought the game, you'll just continue to get all this additional content, and at no extra cost. And it's one of those games where every single character, despite the fact it's got 23 characters, they all are useful in some capacity. So there's no characters that are redundant and that people don't really play. There were, in the sense that Blizzard were looking at, the fact that some characters were hardly played at all on certain game modes, so they just buffed them as to make them more viable. So I just think it's one of those games where, I don't have particularly fast reactions. I'm old, it takes me half an hour to turn around and realise someone's shooting at me. But Overwatch is the type of game, because it's team-based, where you can help each other out, you can contribute in a way to each match, depending on which role that you have. So if you're offensive or defense, or you happen to be a tank or a support healer, you can play that role within that sort of team-based environment. It's kind of like a really, it runs at 60 frames per second on 1080p on the consoles, both the Xbox One and the PS4, and that's impressive. It continues to be a lot of fun. I keep trying to rank up and get better, but I don't really. But I still enjoy it. I can play it for a couple of hours and think, yeah, that was good, And despite the fact that my friend says it's just jumping up and down shooting at people, and he's a games journalist, I still find it compelling, and I still keep coming back to it. And I keep thinking to myself, will this such and such game that's been released pull me away from Overwatch? But I just keep going back. So there must be something. Blizzard must have that missing ingredient.
Blizzard games in general are like that. They've got the magic sauce. If anything, it'll just be the content that will keep bringing you back, the new content.
Yeah, I think it is. It's new characters, it's new content, and there's nothing so far that's made me think, I'm bored of it now. I keep thinking I'm getting bored of it, and then I'm like, I had a period where I left it for a couple of weeks, but then I did get back to it, and I thought, this is fun. I remember why I like this game. And it's just great. I think it's been a real success. It's got like 7 million people playing it, apparently.
The content model is refreshing and nice as well. Like, I feel like it shouldn't be overcomplicated. Like, you have a $60 multiplayer game. In this case, you buy the game, you get free content as the years go on. Or it should be, you get the multiplayer game free and you pay for content as the years go on.
Exactly. And there's it has attracted some controversy, but I feel a little bit unfairly. Jim Sterling said he wouldn't put it into consideration for his game of the year because it has microtransactions in it. But I would say yes, but they're only cosmetic. You can only buy you can buy loot boxes, but the items you get in loot boxes are just cosmetic items for characters. They don't make you a better player. They don't give you an advantage. So you can buy them if you want to, but the fact is you don't need to because you earn loot boxes every time you level up in the game. So, but it's there if you want to. So it's an option if people want it.
Yeah, I have no issue with that. If you want to waste your money on cosmetic gear, then fine, go nuts. I don't care. Do what makes you happy. Like Jim Sterling, I don't see the issue. Like, people can do whatever the hell they want with their money, and it's not like they're being forced to give Blizzard their money. It's completely optional.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of I don't always agree with him. I disagree on that issue, but I'm with you. I think if people want to buy loot boxes, they can. Yeah, it's up to them. I don't personally understand it. I wouldn't do it myself, but that's not to say I begrudge people that do.
If they had some kind of system inbuilt into the game where it was addictive and you felt you had to give them your money and it wasn't you're looking at it from an addiction point of view, then I'd take issue with it, microtransactions. But no, not for something like this. Gears of War 4 has the exact same thing. You can buy packs and it's random cards that gives you cosmetic skins and looks and crap for your guns, and it doesn't change the gameplay at all. Like, it's just optional. And again, you earn these packs by playing anyway.
Yeah, I haven't got such a big deal, such a big problem with that kind of DLC. You have to be careful with it, because with this, I've not played this obviously, and I don't know too much about it other than what I've heard, and I've heard it's very solid, and I know you've talked about it quite a lot, Grant, and it's a game that if I thought I could give it the time it requires, then I'd probably go out and buy it tomorrow and enjoy playing it and have a blast. The problem for me is obviously time issues.
Yeah.
Where I have a problem with this kind of thing is where they blur the lines between cosmetic and having to buy things that actually will give you an edge in the game. And as long as they're not doing that, then I think they're the right side of the line.
Yeah, they've said they will never do anything that gives people an advantage in terms of like affecting the game and the character.
Sorry guys, my phone was just going off its tits for some reason.
And it sounded like you had a bird in the room.
I opened up my phone because I was going to check something about Overwatch, but it was some Review Tech USA tweet. I don't know what the hell it was on about, but my phone unlocked on it, and it was something to do with, he was like, "'Tis the season to be da-da-da jolly," but instead he pointed his phone at his computer screen, and it was all these LED pictures of someone lighting up their street with LED dicks, and I was...
LED dicks.
It was like, "'Tis the season for dicks." I was like, oh my god, here it is.
Season for dicks.
I'm like, that's really awkward to unlock my phone on the
brilliant.
podcast, but whatever.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of kids get conceived over the Christmas period, apparently.
Sorry, I apologise, guys. I mean, we did say we were going to throw shit into the fan, and I feel like I just threw the biggest piece of shit in.
Or the biggest dick.
Biggest dick, yeah, that's it. All right, let's stop talking about dicks and let's move on.
Biggest dickers.
Is it my turn?
Yeah. What's your number one?
All right, so my number one, drum roll. This, again, could have been number two. Uncharted probably could have easily taken number one, but Doom 2016.
Yeah, that...
Love it. Fantastic. In a nutshell, again, I know I've said this a lot, but it's FPS crack. It's just so pure FPS that it knows what it is and it goes for it balls to the wall. And not to mention, it was pretty light narrative-wise, but it had just enough to keep me going, and it was the kind of narrative where I didn't want to get bogged down in narrative because it was a fast-paced Twitch shooter campaign, and what it did drip feed you was enough to kind of give you reason to keep playing through all these levels. Personally, I didn't touch the multiplayer though. I heard that was trash, so I steered clear of that. But it just, even more credit to the single player that it was good enough to take my number one spot. I loved it. And in fact, I bought it on two systems as well. I bought it on PS4 and the PC. I loved it that much.
Yeah, I will go back to it, and to be fair, it's in my top 10. It's just outside the top 5. It's actually number 7. I had it. Brilliant game. Mechanically, it really was very well designed. And if you watch that documentary, it just shows exactly how much thought they put into that glory kill system. I thought that was a really, really clever way of sort of spicing up the FPS kind of genre. The way they did it was I thought made it really fun. The only reason I personally wouldn't put it in my top 5 is because I actually found it quite challenging, but because it's so fast, and I actually thought the narrative was quite clever, but they sort of took the piss out of game narrative a little bit by the fact that the Doom guy just doesn't care about the story because he just breaks everything, and he's sort of, I'm not fucking interested in that. Picks up the monitor and just throws it on the ground. Just don't tell me about, it's just like kill demons. That's the plot. Rip and tear until it's done.
It would have actually probably got into my top 5 if I'd have played it a bit more. The only reason I haven't put it in this list is simply because I haven't played it long enough to have made a full overview of it yet, if you see what I mean. And I need to play it a bit more before I can decide whether I actually think it is as great as I currently do. Because I think that glory kill thing, I thought when I first started playing it, and the first time I experienced it, that I thought this is great. This is a great development in a first person shooter. You know, well, like you said this the other day, that it keeps you moving forward at breakneck speed, and it keeps you wanting to move forward onto the next bit and the next bit and the next bit and the next bit. It's thoroughly enjoyable, and as I've said this before, it is a Doom game. It's just brought that whole feeling of a Doom game up into the modern era, if you like. So yeah, I think that's worth definitely.
I feel like where it ended as well, it's actually going to get a sequel, if not become a trilogy. It was shocked that a Doom game's actually getting a full fleshed out narrative trilogy in 2016. But
well, I mean, that's obviously the idea, was to create. I mean, I haven't finished it, so I don't. I mean, I was quite near the end, so I will go back to it and try and complete it. But it's a very impressive game. I mean, it runs really well on console as well.
Oh yeah.
On the PS4, I'm not sure. I think it runs at 60 frames a second.
Yeah,
I'm not
it
sure
does.
though.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, because it just felt like it felt really. I mean,
Perfect.
It's a beautiful looking game. It just feels really good to play, you know, and even feels good on a controller, which is a sign of a great game, because it shows they thought about the control system on a console as well as a PC. I think that's quite impressive.
No, it checked all the boxes for me. It's a fantastic overall package. I just loved it. It was so refreshing as well. Like, I mean, it's hard to say, first-person shooter was refreshing, but it was just such a sidestep from what we're used to at the moment. It was just so refreshing. And again, like you mentioned before, the whole attitude surrounding the game as well. It was just, everything about it was refreshing.
Right, so, me then. This is going to be a bit of an anticlimax, because it's another one we've already covered. You know what it's going to be, don't you? It's Uncharted 4.
Uncharted? I can't remember what we've done yet.
Uncharted 4.
It's deserving.
I to be honest, you guys keep saying this. I've said it before. I could have moved these around quite a lot. You know, I could have probably picked them up, thrown them on the floor, and picked them up in any order, and it still would have been a reasonable order for me. But although what you said earlier about The Last of Us being a better game, I'm one of those. I think The Last of Us is a better game than Uncharted 4 personally. I prefer the narrative, but it's comparing them is quite, it's almost impossible. You know, they're made by the same company, so you know, go figure. It's a brilliant game. It's got a terrific narrative. It looks wonderful. We've said all this before. I'm not going to go over it in too much detail here. It's just worth anyone's money to go out and buy this game and play it and thoroughly enjoy it. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
What more do I need to add? I don't think there was any dogs in this lineup. I mean, I think they're all pretty decent games. And I started putting together my top 5 today. Actually, I was going to do a video on this myself, and when I looked through it, I saw that there were, I think, 3 Xbox games, 1 PC game, and 1 PS4 game. And I thought, I'm going to get the PS4 people are going to be kicking me because there's only 1 PS4 game in there, you know.
Joe, just use Gears of War footage in all of these game videos.
Absolutely. Yeah. And well, it was just going to be 1 video, so I thought I'd just stick Gears of War on there from the PC, so I could just make sure I pissed everybody off who owns a console, you know.
Yeah.
If you really want to piss people off, make a really, really bad mistake in one of your videos, like I did, and get someone to point it out in the comments. And also, just refer to it as like the Sony Xbox or something, just to really annoy people.
I had one guy because I said Sony as opposed to Sony.
Yeah.
I had one guy come on and say it's Sony, not Sunny. He didn't even say it right. He said Sunny. He wrote Sunny, not, and I didn't say Sunny. I said Sonny. It's like
a peasant.
Fucking hell,
yes.
You know.
Peasant.
He's a pedantic peasant. Yeah, there you go.
We're just peasants arguing about peasant crap anyway.
It's a peasant station. It's a Sony peasant station.
You guys talk about whatever you want, but I'm just sitting here using my PlayStation as my mouse pad.
Yeah, are you lighting your cigars with £50 notes or $50 notes?
No.
No, I'm burning Xbox discs and lighting my cigars.
So you're not lighting your cigars with your with your PS4 Pro that's catching light then?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh no! Now I'm going to get called
biggest
an
hardware
expert.
myths of 2016.
Shit! So I started. Hold on a minute. I started this podcast as a Sony pony, and now I'm ending it, or I'm halfway through it as an
PC
expert.
elitist.
Shit! I really am a flip flopper. Fuck.